What if the person changing the world was struggling the most at home? This was the question Oprah Winfrey opened with on a crisp evening at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, the glow of stage lights casting soft shadows as the crowd settled in. The camera zoomed in, capturing her warm yet probing gaze as she addressed millions of viewers. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Those words lingered in the air as Elon Musk, the enigmatic entrepreneur behind Tesla, SpaceX, and a galaxy of other ventures, took his seat across from her. The audience buzzed with anticipation. Elon was no stranger to headlines, but tonight promised something different, an intimate dive into the man behind the innovations, a man whose parenting style had sparked controversy and curiosity alike. The interview began with the usual topics. Tesla's new battery breakthroughs, SpaceX's ambitions for Mars, but then, as if guided by an unseen script, Oprah's voice softened and her tone deepened. Elon, she said, you've been called everything from a visionary to a workaholic, but I want to ask you something more personal. How do you balance your relentless drive with being a father? The room seemed to still, the question hanging heavily in the air. Elon's expression flickered, caught off guard yet resolute. I'm not sure anyone balances everything perfectly, he replied thoughtfully. But I try to be present when it counts. Oprah pressed gently, some say your children don't see you enough. How do you respond to that? Elon hesitated, the layers of public persona peeling back ever so slightly. I guess I do what I can. My work is about building a future for them, too. There was tension, an unspoken acknowledgement of the sacrifices behind the scenes. But what about the moments now? Oprah asked, her voice a whisper yet powerful. Elon's jaw tightened, his eyes reflecting a complex storm of pride, guilt, and hope. The cameras captured this raw vulnerability, a man usually so controlled revealing cracks in his armor. The live audience was silent, captivated by the unexpected depth. Elon, why do you think your parenting style has stirred so much debate? Oprah's question was direct, cutting through the usual defenses. Elon smiled wryly. Because parenting isn't simple. Especially when the world is watching, and the stakes feel impossibly high. The interview unfolded like a dance, each question met with a guarded yet honest response, each moment revealing more of the man beneath the headlines. Oprah shared stories from her own childhood, growing up poor in rural Mississippi, overcoming abuse and hardship, and the room felt the weight of those experiences intertwining with Elon's narrative. The audience wasn't just watching an interview, they were witnessing a rare glimpse into human struggle and resilience. Throughout the night, moments of tension gave way to hope. Elon recounted a family trip to SpaceX headquarters, a rare day when work and family blurred beautifully. Oprah nodded, reminding viewers that even the busiest, most driven people crave connection and love. She invited the audience to reflect on their own challenges. What pushes you forward when life gets tough, she asked. Share your story. Social media lit up instantly, viewers from all over the country and beyond chiming in. Elon's guarded exterior softened further when Oprah asked about his children's perspectives. They've told me what they need, he admitted, voice low. Sometimes I'm not sure I'm the father they want me to be, but I'm trying. The honesty was startling, a stark contrast to the larger-than-life figure known for rockets and electric cars. The night's conversation veered into deeper territory, Elon's first divorce, the pressures of public scrutiny, and the balancing act between ambition and family. Oprah's questions were gentle but relentless, peeling back layers until the core truths surfaced. The audience could almost feel the weight of Elon's internal conflicts, the desire to change the world, the fear of failing his children, and the hope that drives him forward no matter what. As the interview closed, Oprah leaned forward, her voice steady and full of compassion. Elon, if you could give one piece of advice to parents out there struggling like you, what would it be? Elon looked thoughtful. After a long pause, he said quietly, don't give up. Keep trying. Love is complicated, but it's the most important thing we have. The crowd erupted in applause, the moment electric with emotion and possibility. This was not the usual tech talk or celebrity interview, it was a story about growth, struggle, and hope. The camera panned out, capturing the faces of viewers around the world, some wiping away tears, others inspired to reflect on their own journeys. Behind the scenes, Oprah and Elon exchanged a look that spoke volumes: respect, understanding, and the unspoken bond formed through shared vulnerability. As the show ended, Oprah's parting words echoed, "Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way." What if this moment, this conversation, could spark a new beginning, not just for Elon and his family, but for everyone watching? That question hung in the air, inviting us all to think about the complicated, beautiful challenge of being human. The story had just begun. Elon Musk's story didn't begin in the dazzling glow of Silicon Valley or the roar of rocket launches. It started in a small house in Pretoria, South Africa, where the shadows of childhood stretched long and complicated. From the outside, the Musk family seemed poised for success. Elon's father, Errol, was an engineer, and his mother, May, a model and dietitian. But beneath the surface, the world Elon grew up in was a tangled web of strict discipline, emotional distance, and silent expectations. From a young age, Elon learned that excellence was demanded, but warmth was scarce. His father, a man of rigid principles and high expectations, was often distant, a figure both respected and feared. Elon's earliest memories are sharp, hours spent alone in his room, buried in books or tinkering with gadgets to escape the coldness that sometimes filled the house. At school, Elon was the awkward boy with thick glasses, relentlessly bullied for his quiet demeanor and peculiar interests. He remembers one moment vividly: a group of boys pushing him down the stairs, laughter ringing in his ears, the sting of betrayal by classmates who should have been friends. Those moments etched a resilience in him, but also a sense of isolation that would follow him into adulthood. Despite the hardships, Elon found refuge in knowledge. He devoured science fiction novels, dreams of other worlds fueling his imagination and giving him a glimpse of a future beyond Pretoria's confines. The stories of heroes battling against impossible odds resonated deeply, planting the seeds of a relentless drive to push boundaries. His mother, May, was a beacon of light amid the shadows. Though often caught between her roles as a caregiver and a professional model, she provided Elon with glimpses of unconditional love and encouragement. She nurtured his curiosity and celebrated his intellect, even when the rest of the world seemed indifferent. Yet even this maternal warmth was complicated by the pressures of their fractured family life. The tension between his parents created an invisible barrier, a silent battle that young Elon absorbed with quiet confusion. Arguments whispered through closed doors, long silences at dinner tables, and the unspoken understanding that emotions were dangerous terrain. These early years forged in Elon a paradoxical blend of toughness and vulnerability. He learned to protect himself by building walls, yet inside, a deep yearning for connection and acceptance simmered beneath the surface. His relationship with his siblings was marked by a complicated loyalty, love mixed with competition and occasional distance. Elon's father was a man who valued toughness and self-reliance above all else. Elon Musk's approach to parenting was strict, sometimes harsh, pushing his children to excel but rarely pausing to acknowledge their emotional needs. Elon's father believed that failure was not an option and that emotions should be subordinated to logic and achievement. This philosophy shaped much of Elon's early understanding of the world, instilling in him a relentless work ethic but also a fear of showing weakness. Yet despite these difficulties, Elon's mind was a fertile ground for innovation. At just 10 years old, he taught himself computer programming, creating a video game called Blaster that he sold for $500. This early success was a spark of hope amid the challenges at home, a glimpse of the power his intellect could wield. Throughout his teenage years, Elon's relationship with his father remained strained. He often describes Errol as a complicated man, intelligent but sometimes cruel, a figure whose presence was both a challenge and a puzzle to be solved. Elon's parents eventually divorced, further fracturing the family and adding layers of emotional complexity to his already complicated childhood. Meanwhile, Elon's mother moved to Canada, seeking new opportunities and a fresh start. Elon followed years later, seeking not just education but also distance from the past. The move marked a turning point, a physical and emotional break from his roots. Yet even as he left South Africa behind, the shadows of his childhood lingered, shaping his approach to life and parenting. The lessons learned in those early years were etched deeply. Success was vital, but emotional connection was a territory he had yet to fully navigate. These memories were not easy for Elon to share publicly. His usual media appearances focus on technology and vision, rarely peeling back to reveal the boy who grew up feeling lonely and misunderstood. But in private, these moments shaped his approach to his own children, influencing how he balances love and discipline, presence and ambition. Understanding Elon's childhood also means understanding the cultural context. Growing up in apartheid-era South Africa meant living amid a society rife with conflict, division, and upheaval. Elon was a witness to inequality and injustice, shaping his worldview and fueling his desire to create technologies that could change the world for the better. Yet this backdrop also contributed to his complex identity, a mix of privilege and isolation, determination and internal struggle. Beyond family, Elon's friendships in childhood were few but meaningful. One early friend, Kimball, became not only a brother but a lifelong partner in business and life. Their bond provided a rare source of support in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. These relationships grounded Elon in a way his family sometimes could not. As Elon navigated adolescence, his personality grew increasingly defined by a fierce independence and a refusal to conform. He was a dreamer and a doer, often clashing with authority figures at school who couldn't understand his restless mind. His vision extended beyond Earth, fueled by science fiction and an unyielding belief that humanity's future lay among the stars. But underneath this ambition was a boy still wrestling with questions of worth and belonging. These early struggles are essential to understanding the man who would later revolutionize transportation, energy, and space exploration. They reveal the roots of his drive but also the cracks in his emotional armor. Elon's childhood wasn't defined by fairy tales or easy happiness. It was a story of survival, resilience, and a relentless quest for meaning in a world that often seemed cold. These shadows followed him, influencing every decision and relationship that came after. For Oprah, learning about Elon's past was a key to unlocking the mystery of his present. Her own life, though different in circumstance, shared echoes of struggle and triumph. She recognized in Elon the familiar pattern of a childhood shaped by adversity and a fierce determination to rewrite the narrative. This shared understanding deepened the conversation between them, transforming it from a simple interview into a meaningful exploration of human complexity. Elon's reflections on his past also sparked questions about his parenting style. How does a man shaped by emotional distance learn to connect with his own children? How do the lessons of hardship translate into love and presence? These questions lingered in the air, unanswered but urgent. As Elon spoke about his childhood, his voice softened, the usual guardedness slipping away. He described moments of loneliness, of feeling like an outsider in his own family. Yet he also spoke of hope, hope born from knowledge, from dreams, and from the small acts of kindness his mother showed him. These dualities formed the foundation of who Elon was, a man torn between extremes but striving to find balance. The story of Elon Musk's childhood is not just about pain or struggle, it's about the seeds of greatness sown in difficult soil. It's about the resilience to rise, the curiosity to question, and the courage to face an uncertain future. This background provided the context for the tensions and hopes that would unfold in the interview with Oprah, setting the stage for the deeper exploration of fatherhood and legacy. As the chapter closes, the reader is invited to see Elon not just as a billionaire innovator but as a complex human being shaped by love and loss, hope and hardship. This understanding is crucial for the story that will continue, of a man confronting his past, his public image, and his role as a father. Through this lens, the audience can begin to empathize with Elon's struggles and root for his growth, setting the emotional stakes for the chapters to come. In this way, Elon Musk's childhood shadows become more than memories, they become the emotional groundwork for a story about transformation, connection, and the enduring power of love. Oprah Winfrey's story began in a very different place from Elon Musk's, but her childhood was no less complex or challenging. Born in rural Mississippi, Oprah's early years were marked by poverty, hardship, and a family life shadowed by trauma. From the start, her life was a testament to resilience and the power of hope. Growing up in a small, segregated town, Oprah was raised primarily by her grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, a stern but loving woman who instilled in Oprah a deep respect for education and self-worth. Life was simple but harsh, poverty was a constant companion, and the comforts many took for granted were scarce. Yet, even as a child, Oprah's spirit shone brightly. She was an eager learner, a voracious reader, and a natural storyteller. Her grandmother's lessons were practical and profound. "You get nothing without working for it," Hattie Mae would say, echoing through Oprah's memory as a mantra that would carry her through life. But childhood was not without its pain. Oprah experienced abuse and neglect in the early years, a heavy burden for a young girl. These wounds could have defined her, but instead, they became a catalyst for growth. Oprah learned early that survival required both toughness and vulnerability, that pain could be transformed into power. Moving to Milwaukee to live with her mother, Vernita Lee, brought new challenges and opportunities. Though her mother struggled with her own difficulties, she supported Oprah's ambitions and helped nurture her talent for speaking and connecting with people. At school, Oprah discovered her voice, not just literally but emotionally. She became a star student and an outspoken advocate, developing the communication skills that would later make her a media icon. The values Oprah absorbed during these formative years were deeply rooted in love, community, and the pursuit of knowledge. She understood that despite the obstacles, her story was hers to write. This perspective shaped her later work as a television host and philanthropist, always focused on lifting others and shining a light on difficult truths. Oprah's relationship with her family was complex yet foundational. Though there were struggles and misunderstandings, the bonds of love remained strong. Her grandmother's tough love provided a moral compass, and her mother's resilience inspired Oprah's determination. These relationships gave her both strength and empathy, qualities that would define her approach to interviewing and storytelling. As Oprah moved into adulthood, she carried these early lessons with her, navigating the worlds of media and celebrity with a rare authenticity. She became known not just for her success but for her ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Her interviews were more than questions and answers, they were conversations rooted in shared human experience. This background gave Oprah a unique perspective when she sat down with Elon Musk. Understanding struggle, resilience, and the complexities of family life allowed her to ask the questions others might shy away from. Her empathy created a safe space for Elon to open up, revealing parts of himself rarely seen by the public. Oprah's life lessons also shaped the way she framed the conversation about parenting. She recognized that love is complicated, that even the most successful people wrestle with balancing ambition and family. She knew that behind every headline is a human story, often messy but always meaningful. The contrast between Oprah's upbringing and Elon's was striking, yet their shared experiences of hardship and hope bridged the gap. Both had faced adversity, both had fought to rise above it, and both understood the cost of that fight on personal relationships. This connection deepened the dialogue, turning a public interview into a profound exploration of what it means to be human. As Oprah listened to Elon recount his childhood struggles, she saw reflections of her own journey. The loneliness, the pressure, the yearning for acceptance, these were not just his burdens but universal challenges. Her questions were gentle yet incisive, inviting Elon to confront not just his past but the ways it shaped his present. For the audience, Oprah's story provided a mirror. It reminded them that greatness often springs from hardship, that resilience is born in the crucible of pain, and that love, no matter how complicated, is a powerful force for healing. Throughout the interview, Oprah's warmth and honesty created a rhythm that balanced tension and hope. She acknowledged the difficulties Elon faced as a father, but she also highlighted his efforts to grow and change. This balanced approach encouraged viewers to see the complexity rather than judge simplistically. Oprah's early life lessons were also a guidepost for the audience, to hold space for their own struggles, to recognize the power of perseverance, and to never underestimate the importance of love and connection. Her story underscored that while circumstances shape us, they do not define us, and that the path to healing is often non-linear but always possible. Oprah reflecting on the importance of sharing stories, both the triumphant and the painful. She believed that by telling our truths, we create understanding and empathy, bridging divides and fostering community. This belief fueled her career and now illuminated her conversation with Elon Musk. The audience was left with a sense of hope, that even in the face of great challenges, growth and connection are possible. Oprah's journey from a small Mississippi town to global stardom was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for transformation. It was also a reminder that behind every headline, there is a story worth listening to, stories of struggle, resilience, and love. These themes set the tone for the unfolding narrative, inviting readers to delve deeper into the lives of two remarkable people confronting their pasts and striving for something better. In this chapter, Oprah's early life lessons provided not just context but inspiration. A foundation of strength and empathy that would guide the story forward, deepening the emotional resonance and preparing the audience for the rising conflicts and revelations to come. The lights of the studio glowed warmly as the interview moved forward, but there was a noticeable shift in the room's energy. The pleasantries were over. Oprah had built a foundation of empathy, and Elon had allowed the smallest crack in his armor to show. Now came the deeper, messier questions, the ones that tested not just intellect but emotional honesty. "Let's talk about presence," Oprah said, leaning slightly forward, her voice softer but no less focused. "You have multiple companies to run. You've built a literal space program. But your children, how often do you really see them, Elon?" The question landed like a quiet thunderclap. Elon blinked, took a slow breath, and seemed to choose his next words carefully. "I try to spend time with them when I can," he said. "It's not as often as I'd like. But I make an effort. When I'm there, I'm really there." Oprah didn't flinch. "But is that enough?" she asked. "When your child has a bad day, do they call you, or do they call someone else?" For a moment, Elon didn't answer. The silence was heavy, charged with more emotion than any speech could convey. He finally said, "They know they can call me. I hope they do. But I also know I haven't always made it easy." The honesty surprised even him. It wasn't often that he spoke this openly about his private life. His words were measured, but there was something trembling beneath them. "It's a weird thing," he continued. "You build something for the world, you try to make life better for everyone, but the people closest to you sometimes pay the price." The crowd was still, sensing the weight of the moment. Oprah nodded. "That's what I want to understand, Elon. You've revolutionized industries, disrupted transportation, pioneered space tech, but your kids, they don't care about Mars. They care about dinner with Dad." That line struck a chord. Elon's jaw tightened slightly. "I know," he said. "And sometimes, I don't know how to be both things, the visionary and the father. One always pulls on the other." The tension was real now, not just between the interviewer and the guest, but inside Elon himself. A conflict so many parents feel, magnified by his colossal ambitions. The struggle between providing a better future and being present in the now. Oprah shifted gears, reaching for empathy but not letting go of the truth. "I've met single mothers working 2 jobs who still show up at every recital," she said. "And I've met CEOs who admit they've missed entire years of their children's lives. So let me ask you. Do you ever wonder what your kids are missing from you?" Elon stared for a moment at the floor, then lifted his gaze slowly. "I think about it every day," he said. "I tell myself I'm doing it all for them. But there are nights when I sit alone, and I wonder if they believe that." There it was, the first true fracture, a rare glimpse of doubt in a man who otherwise exuded unshakable conviction. The audience, watching from homes and phones across the country, leaned in emotionally. The man who launched rockets was still grounded by the same fears they carried in their own hearts. Oprah leaned into that vulnerability. "Do you talk to them about it?" she asked. "Have you apologized when you've missed something important?" "Yes," Elon said. "Not always in the best way. But I try. I've told them I'm sorry for missing school plays, birthdays, sometimes even just breakfast." The admission hung in the air. It was not a scandalous confession, but it was deeply human. And in its simplicity, it struck a universal chord. The conflict wasn't about fame or money or technology. It was about presence. About love. About the cost of ambition. Oprah turned to the audience. How many of us have struggled with this balance? How many of us have told ourselves that the future we're building will make up for the moments we're losing now? Viewers across the country nodded silently. Some posted online. Others stared into the screen, feeling seen. Then, just as the moment seemed to be settling, Oprah added another layer. "Elon, let me ask something harder. When you think about your own father, and everything you've said publicly about him, do you ever fear becoming the same kind of parent?" The room felt colder. Elon didn't move for a moment. His face didn't twitch, but his eyes gave something away. "Yes," he said. "I think about that more than I want to admit. My father was brilliant but difficult. He taught me to be strong. But he also taught me to be afraid of needing anyone." Oprah let the silence fill the space before speaking again. "And do you think your kids feel like they can need you?" Elon's lips pressed into a tight line. His voice dropped to a murmur. "I hope so. But I'm not sure. I've built a life around control, around solving problems. But love isn't a problem you solve. It's a connection you show up for, every day." It was a stunning admission. One that reframed everything people thought they knew about Elon Musk. The man who made machines dance on the surface of Mars was still learning how to sit still and listen to his children talk about their day. And Oprah, whose own life had been defined by people failing to show up, recognized the depth of that realization. She didn't lecture him or offer platitudes. She just said, "That's a powerful thing to admit." Elon nodded slowly. "I didn't come here expecting to talk about any of this," he said. "But maybe that's why I need to." Outside the studio, reactions poured in. Social media was ablaze. Some criticized Elon, calling his confessions too little, too late. Others applauded his honesty, saying it made them feel less alone in their own parenting struggles. But beyond the noise, something deeper was happening. For the first time, the public wasn't just seeing Elon the innovator, they were seeing Elon the father. A man grappling with the same heartaches, doubts, and hopes as anyone else. And this, Oprah knew, was where real transformation begins. As the interview reached its midpoint, Oprah shifted the energy gently. "You said earlier that your children have told you what they need," she said. "Can you share what that looked like?" Elon smiled faintly. "My oldest once told me he just wants me to sit and eat with them without checking my phone," he said. "That's it. Not a trip to Mars. Not a Tesla. Just dinner." The audience chuckled softly, the warmth returning. "And did you do it?" Oprah asked. "I did," Elon replied. "It was one of the hardest things I've done. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had to learn how to be still." The confession resonated. In a world addicted to motion and multitasking, learning to be still was a revolutionary act. Especially for someone whose mind was constantly building the future. Oprah smiled. "Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is be present. Not just in body, but in spirit." Elon nodded. "I'm starting to understand that." The conversation was far from over. There were more truths to uncover, more tensions to explore. But already, a transformation had begun, not just in Elon, but in everyone watching. The sparks of conflict had lit something bigger than controversy. They had ignited a conversation about what truly matters. Not fame. Not fortune. But love. Connection. Presence. And the willingness to grow, even when the world is watching. That night, as the stage lights dimmed slightly for a break, Oprah looked across at Elon and said, "This is just the beginning." And Elon, for the first time that evening, allowed himself a real smile. Not one of confidence or calculation, but something gentler. Hopeful. Human. The cameras stopped rolling for a scheduled break, but the weight of what had just been said hung thick in the air. Elon stood up slowly, tugged at the sleeves of his jacket, and walked over to a table where a glass of water waited untouched. Oprah remained seated, her eyes quietly watching him, not as an interviewer but as someone who understood the inner tremors that follow public vulnerability. Elon didn't speak at first. He took a sip, glanced toward the floor, and let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Behind the scenes, his team exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't the narrative they expected. This wasn't about electric cars or colonizing Mars. This was about a father coming undone in front of millions. When he finally broke the silence, his voice was low, more to himself than anyone else. "I didn't expect to feel anything." Oprah stood and walked toward him, standing close but not intruding. "You're not used to feeling things with an audience," she said gently. "It's okay." Elon nodded, barely. "It's like. I always thought being strong meant not dwelling on this kind of stuff. But now I'm realizing I've confused strength with numbness." Oprah understood that sentence more than anyone in the room. She'd spent her life building a career on people learning to tell the difference. As they returned to their seats, ready to film the next segment, Oprah knew something had shifted. Not in ratings or public sentiment, but in Elon. The kind of shift that breaks something open so it can start to heal. When the lights went back on and the red light on the camera blinked awake, the world didn't see two media giants at odds. They saw two people in a delicate, necessary conversation. Oprah began again. "Before we move on, I want to ask you, what's been the hardest part of parenting for you?" Elon didn't answer immediately. The silence wasn't resistance now. It was care. Precision. He finally said, trying to connect. "Like truly connect. My brain works fast, it's always in motion. But emotions, they come slower. I see a problem and I want to solve it. But when my son tells me he's lonely, there's no code to write. No machine to build. Just, me, sitting there." The audience heard that. They felt it. Because it wasn't a billionaire's confession, it was a parent's. He continued, "Sometimes I overcompensate. I try to give them everything, opportunities, technology, experiences. But then I realize what they want is time. Just time. And attention. And the scary thing is, I'm still learning how to give that." This time, Oprah didn't respond right away. She let the words live in the space, giving them room to breathe. "Do they know you're trying?" she asked eventually. "I think they do," Elon said. "But I also think they've learned to not expect too much." That line struck deep, not just in the viewers, but in Oprah herself. It reminded her of the little girl waiting on a front porch for a mother who might not come home, of broken promises and how they echo long into adulthood. "That's a lot for kids to carry," she said softly. "Do you carry guilt?" Elon looked down for a moment, then said, "Yes. I carry a lot of guilt. I think guilt is the most honest emotion I've ever had as a father." There was no applause this time. No dramatic music. Just quiet understanding. Backstage, Elon's staff watched the feed with growing discomfort. PR managers fidgeted, analysts typed furiously. They hadn't signed up for this version of Elon. Vulnerable. Reflective. Human. They whispered to each other, debating whether this was a brilliant move or a PR disaster. But out in the real world, people were listening differently. Parents paused. Children recognized something familiar. Couples exchanged looks. Somewhere in Ohio, a mechanic sat in his garage with tears in his eyes, hearing his own fears echoed in Elon's voice. In Chicago, a young father who worked double shifts replayed the interview 3 times, wondering if his son had already stopped expecting him to show up. Oprah continued the conversation with care, but she knew there was more beneath the surface. "What about your children's mother, or mothers?" she asked. "How do those relationships affect your role as a parent?" Elon exhaled deeply. "That's another layer of complication. Some of the relationships ended badly. Some, with resentment. And sometimes that spills into how we parent. I try not to let it. But it happens." Oprah didn't ask for names. She didn't need to. The emotion in Elon's voice told the story. "Do you think your ambition has cost you your relationships?" she asked. Elon nodded slowly. "Absolutely. I think I've used ambition as armor. If I stay busy enough, successful enough, I don't have to sit with what's broken. But that's a lie. Because eventually, everything catches up to you. The success doesn't erase the damage. It just hides it for a while." The honesty was unflinching. The man who dreamed of saving humanity had just admitted he wasn't sure how to save his own family. And somehow, that made him more real than ever. "What are you afraid of?" Oprah asked. Elon didn't blink. "I'm afraid my kids will grow up thinking I cared more about the world than about them." The room felt frozen. Time suspended around that sentence. Oprah leaned in, her voice gentle. "What would you say to them now, if they were watching?" Elon looked into the camera for the first time. His voice cracked slightly. "I love you. I'm sorry I've missed so much. I want to do better. Not just for the future, but for now." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And that made it everything. The fallout began immediately, but not in the way Elon's team feared. Headlines ran the story with a mix of awe and disbelief. Elon breaks down in interview with Oprah. The billionaire who admitted he's failing at home. Elon Musk's shocking confession about his children. Yet something else was happening beneath the surface. The internet exploded, yes, but so did conversations. Dinner tables across America echoed with similar questions. Are we doing enough for our kids? Do they feel seen? Do they still expect us to show up? In Silicon Valley boardrooms, fathers looked up from their devices. In quiet bedrooms, mothers paused, thinking of their partner's emotional distance. Teachers in small towns discussed it in faculty lounges. Therapists had new language to bring into sessions. Elon had done something no product launch could match. He had started a conversation. Not about innovation. But about reconnection. The fallout wasn't public scandal, it was private reckoning. And as Oprah left the studio that night, her heart heavy with everything left unsaid, she understood this was no longer just an interview. It was a story the world needed. Because the most powerful message wasn't that Elon Musk had admitted his mistakes. It was that if someone like him, busy, brilliant, celebrated, could feel this lost in fatherhood, maybe others could stop pretending they had it all figured out, too. Maybe we could all start telling the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to begin healing. The morning after the interview aired, headlines screamed across every major news outlet. It wasn't just business or entertainment news, it was everywhere. From cable TV to YouTube, podcasts to TikTok, the clips were sliced, stitched, and shared with captions like "Elon breaks down about being a dad, Oprah gets him to admit it," and "Can billionaires be present parents?" By noon, the full episode had been viewed over 60 million times. But the reactions were as divided as the country itself. Some saw raw vulnerability. Others saw weakness. Some saw healing. Others saw strategy. The emotional backlash hit like a tidal wave, some of it public, most of it deeply personal. Elon hadn't opened a window. He'd knocked a wall down. His phone lit up with messages, texts from people he hadn't heard from in years. Old friends. Former partners. Executives. Politicians. Journalists. Family. Many simply said, "I saw it." A few said, "Thank you." One simply wrote, "You didn't have to go that far." That one stuck. He read it again. And again. He didn't reply. The truth was, he wasn't sure if he had gone too far. Or if he'd finally said just enough. But one message stood apart from all the others. It wasn't from an adult. It was from his teenage son, Xavier. 5 words. Simple. Direct. Unexpected. I watched it. I cried. Elon stared at the message for nearly 10 minutes before replying. His hands hovered above the screen. The cursor blinked. Eventually, he typed, "So did I." Then, "I mean what I said." And finally, "Let's talk soon. Just you and me." No response came for hours. But it didn't matter. Something had shifted. Something that couldn't be measured by market share or algorithm. Something human. Meanwhile, the internet churned. Comment sections filled with debates. Was Elon being honest or manipulating the public? Was Oprah exploiting emotion or guiding it towards something healing? Armchair psychologists diagnosed him. Political pundits tried to twist the narrative. Parenting forums turned into battlegrounds. Some viewers sobbed, saying they'd never seen a man in power show so much emotional accountability. Others mocked him for airing private issues on a talk show. Still others used his confession as a reason to excuse their own absence, twisting his vulnerability into validation for apathy. But the loudest voices weren't media figures or politicians. They were the ones sitting quietly in the margins of society, fathers who'd missed years of bedtime stories, mothers who carried the emotional weight of absent partners, and children, grown now, still waiting for their parents to see them. Those were the people who responded to Elon's words like someone had finally cracked open the silence. And then came the family responses, subtle at first. A quote from Justine, Elon's ex-wife and mother of 5 of his children, surfaced on social media. Not a new quote. But people dug it up. In it, she said, "Elon doesn't engage emotionally the way others do. He lives in ideas, in abstractions. Parenting, though, it demands presence." Suddenly, that quote felt sharper. More immediate. And more damning. Then, Grimes posted a cryptic message on her Instagram story, a blurry photo of their son playing piano, followed by the caption, "They don't remember the rockets. They remember who showed up." It went viral within minutes. Elon saw it, of course. He didn't reply. Didn't repost. But he stared at the image of his son's small hands on the piano keys for a long time. Those keys, delicate and real, struck him more deeply than any algorithm or quarterly report ever had. His own mother, May, tweeted a simple but loaded statement, "Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones we never had in our own homes. I'm proud of you, Elon. Keep going." That one brought him to tears. Quietly. Alone. He didn't reply. But he saved it. That same day, a close friend called him. They hadn't spoken in months. The friend said, "You sounded like someone trying to forgive themselves." Elon replied, "That's exactly who I was." Did it help? I don't know yet. He hung up before they could say more. Because the truth was, the emotional backlash wasn't just public. It was inside of him. Private. Unrelenting. Years of justifying absence with purpose, suddenly on trial in his own heart. He began seeing things differently. In the design room at SpaceX, he watched his engineers debate a heat shield algorithm and thought, none of this matters if I can't call my son tonight. In a Tesla board meeting, he found himself distracted by a notification from his youngest child's school. He clicked View instead of ignoring it. It was a photo of a hand-painted solar system. The caption read, "Daddy, this is for you." Elon stared at the planets drawn in messy watercolor. Pluto had smiley eyes. Mars wore a cape. The sun was surrounded by tiny stick figures labeled Me, Mom, You, and My Robot. Elon laughed. Then cried. Quietly. In a room full of executives who didn't notice. That night, he wrote a letter. Not an email. Not a tweet. A letter. To all of his children. He wrote it on paper, with a pen. It took him 3 hours. The ink smudged once from a tear. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. He wrote, I know I've missed things. I've made mistakes. Not because I didn't care. But because I didn't know how to show it. I'm learning. You've taught me more than any engineer ever has. More than any spaceship or car or algorithm. I hope you'll give me a chance to show you. He didn't send it that night. He kept it in his coat pocket, folded. Just knowing it existed made him feel braver. Meanwhile, Oprah was watching the reaction from afar. She wasn't surprised by the backlash. She'd seen it before, truth tends to trigger resistance. But what surprised her was the silence from some of the usual critics. The ones who often mocked emotional conversations. Many of them didn't comment. Or they simply said, I felt that. Oprah knew why. Because pain, especially the kind wrapped in parenthood, is universal. And when someone dares to speak it out loud, even imperfectly, it leaves a mark. Her inbox was flooded with letters. Handwritten ones. Emails. Video messages. A teacher from Atlanta wrote, I watched the interview 3 times. Then I called my dad. For the first time in 12 years. A woman in Wyoming wrote, my husband and I sat in silence after watching. He cried. I've never seen him cry. And from a teenager in Texas, I showed it to my father. He didn't say anything. But he sat next to me for an hour after. The backlash was real. But so was the breakthrough. Oprah sent a message to Elon a few days later. Just one sentence. Your truth opened more doors than any of your rockets ever will. He replied, I don't know what to do with that yet. She sent back, start by being present when you feel like disappearing. That's the hardest thing, and the most human thing, you can do. Elon didn't have a perfect response. But he put her words next to the letter in his coat pocket. The emotional backlash hadn't destroyed him. It had exposed him. And strangely, it was the most grounded he'd felt in years. Not because people approved. But because, for once, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just trying to show up. Imperfect. Late. But finally real. 3 weeks had passed since the interview aired, and while the media cycle had moved on to fresher scandals and headlines, Elon Musk's inner world hadn't returned to normal. In fact, he wasn't sure what normal meant anymore. Something had shifted inside him, an ache he couldn't ignore, a pull stronger than any propulsion system he'd designed. He'd been home more than usual, carving out time between launches and prototypes, sitting at kitchen tables where silence used to live. But it wasn't just about being physically present anymore. It was about truly showing up, with eye contact, with questions, with stillness. The kind that hurt at first, because it forced him to face what had been missing. Then one Saturday morning, something unexpected happened. He received a message from Xavier, short and clear, can I come see you today? Just me. Elon didn't hesitate. He replied instantly. Yes. Anytime. I'll be here. He cancelled 2 meetings, postponed a design review, and instructed his assistant to hold all calls. The nervous energy returned immediately. He cleaned his house himself, not because he thought Xavier would care, but because it felt like a ritual, like preparing sacred ground. He wasn't sure what they'd talk about. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But he knew this visit was important. It wasn't scheduled for optics. It wasn't publicized. It was private, raw, and deeply personal. When the doorbell rang at 1:43 p.m., Elon's breath caught. He opened the door, and there was Xavier, taller than Elon remembered, older in the eyes, still holding a guarded kind of vulnerability. No entourage. No bags. Just a teenager who wanted his father's attention. "Hey," Xavier said. "Hey," Elon replied. They stood there for a moment, just absorbing each other's presence. Then Xavier stepped inside. The house was quiet, no assistants, no engineers, no hum of machines. Just the ticking of a wall clock and the faint scent of coffee. Elon gestured to the kitchen table. "Want anything to drink? Water, juice, coffee. Water's good." They sat across from each other. The same table where Elon had drafted countless business plans, eaten in solitude, scrolled through spreadsheets. Today, none of that mattered. "I watched the interview," Xavier said, breaking the silence. "All of it. Not just the clips." Elon nodded. "I figured. I didn't know you could talk like that." Elon exhaled. "Neither did I." A pause. "You said some stuff, about us. About missing things." "Yeah. It was weird. Because it's true. But also. I didn't think you'd ever say it out loud." Elon looked at his son, his voice steady. "I didn't think I knew how. But I meant every word." Xavier leaned back in his chair. "I used to think you didn't care. Or that you cared more about Mars than us." "I understand that," Elon said. "I gave you a reason to feel that way. You always said the future mattered. That you were building for tomorrow. And I still believe that," Elon said. "But I forgot that your childhood is today. That my job wasn't just building rockets, it was being your dad." The room was thick with emotion, but neither of them looked away. They were two versions of the same bloodline, finally speaking without code or performance. Xavier nodded slowly. "There were times I needed you to just be here. Not saving the world. Just being a guy sitting in the audience at my school debate. Or answering when I called." "I know," Elon said. "And I'm sorry. You always talk about efficiency. About solving problems. But I wasn't a problem. I was just your kid." The words cut deep. Not because they were cruel, but because they were real. "You're right," Elon said. "I treated life like a system to optimize. But love isn't efficient. It's messy. And I missed that." Xavier looked away for a moment, then back. "So, are you trying to fix it now?" "I'm not trying to fix it," Elon said. "I'm trying to show up. If you'll let me." There was a long silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that only exists between people trying to rebuild trust. Brick by fragile brick. Xavier finally said, "Can we do something normal today? Like, watch a movie or something?" Elon smiled. "Absolutely. You pick." Xavier chose an old animated film they used to watch together when he was little. Elon remembered the plot vaguely, but what struck him was the memory of Xavier curling up next to him as a toddler, asking questions about the characters, laughing without restraint. As the movie played, they sat side by side on the couch, older now, quieter, but connected in a way that didn't need words. At one point, Xavier laughed at a joke in the movie and elbowed Elon playfully. It was small. Ordinary. But to Elon, it felt like a lifeline. After the movie, they cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. But it was hands-on, interactive, grounding. Elon let Xavier take the lead. He asked about school, about friends, about what Xavier was into lately. Not as a formality, but with genuine curiosity. And for the first time in a long time, Xavier answered freely. They laughed at a story about a botched science project. They debated whether pineapple belonged on pizza. They shared a moment over a burned garlic knot and turned it into an inside joke. These were things Elon never thought he'd experience again. And now, here they were, humble moments more powerful than any press conference or IPO. After dinner, they went outside. The night was clear, stars visible above the trees. Xavier looked up. "You really think we'll get to Mars in our lifetime?" Elon followed his gaze. "Yes. But more importantly, I want to get it right here first." Xavier turned to him. "What does that mean?" "It means Mars can wait. This can't." Xavier didn't say anything, but he didn't look away either. Eventually, he said, "I'm glad you said that stuff. In the interview." Even if it was hard to hear. It was harder to say, Elon admitted. But it needed to be said. As the evening came to a close, Xavier stood by the front door, hoodie pulled up slightly, phone in hand. "I should go. But, can we do this again? Like, actually do it, not just say we will." Elon stepped forward. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They shared an awkward hug, the kind that comes from people relearning how to hold each other, but it was real. And for now, that was enough. As Xavier walked down the path to the car waiting outside, Elon stood in the doorway, watching. Not as a man guarding a fortress. But as a father, hopeful, broken open, and finally present. Later that night, he sat alone at the kitchen table. The same one where the day had started. He took the folded letter from his coat pocket and added a line at the bottom, "Today, we started something new. I won't let it end here." He dated it. Folded it again. And this time, he left it on the kitchen counter, where it would stay. Not hidden away, but in plain sight. A promise in ink. Not to be perfect. But to be there. When the image of Elon and Xavier, arms around each other, was captured by a neighbor and uploaded online, it spread faster than any SpaceX launch footage. It was a simple photo, unfiltered, a father and son in a loose embrace on a suburban driveway under twilight's glow. But in that frame, viewers saw more than intimacy. They saw redemption. Critics and supporters rushed to commentary. Some praised the authenticity, finally, a billionaire showing what real love looks like. Others remained skeptical, PR stunt. Social media algorithms transformed the image into fuel for sentiment, hashtags trending in cycles, hashtag real men feel, hashtag Musk dad or hashtag fake it Elon. Meanwhile, Elon's schedule stayed the same, but his priorities had shifted under the surface. He returned to the boardroom with a newfound steadiness. Meetings began with a 2-minute silence in memory of the rare quiet moment he'd spent with Xavier, an unorthodox ritual that unsettled some colleagues but reminded him what they were all really building for, humanity's future and his own family's now. Across the world, the segment audio clip played, "I'm trying to show up. If you'll let me." It became an anthem for fathers and daughters, sons and mothers, a phrase shared in audio messages, in DMs, in whispered conversations at the office water cooler. But not everyone welcomed it. A wave of articles surfaced criticizing Elon's parenting, twisting his honesty into evidence of privilege. Privilege transported him back home, one writer said. Emotional performativity as brand messaging. Others wrote that vulnerability was weakness, and only emotional walls kept accomplished men competitive. And then there were the trolls, people who lurked in comment threads, ready to pounce. "Cry billionaire cry," they mocked. "What's next? Therapy at Tesla HQ?" It stung. Elon saw it. On business trips, his security briefings included media monitoring on parenting angles, male insecurity, emotional overcompensation, poor leadership at home. Everyone wanted to know, who really was Musk the father? The man behind the headlines was looking at himself too. The evening after the photo went viral, Elon called Xavier. "Did you see it?" he asked. "Yeah," Xavier replied. "Your inbox must be full." "More like bleeding," Elon said. He laughed without humor. "Are you okay?" Xavier asked. "Yeah," Elon said. "Just, aware." "Does it matter what they say?" "It does," Elon admitted. "Because it doesn't stop being hurtful just 'cause I can afford it. You don't seem like a PR stunt to me." "Good," Elon replied. Then he paused. "Tonight, I want to do something different. I want to share with you why I've made what I've made, not to justify, but to explain. Want to come over?" Xavier said yes, and they end the call. When Xavier arrived, Elon led him to a room lit by a single-floor lamp. On a small table lay old Tesla prototypes, blueprints, and a framed photo of Elon and Xavier at age 5. They sat across a small wooden table. Elon picked up the photo. "Remember this?" he asked. Xavier nodded, his gaze softening. Elon pointed to the young father. "I missed a lot after this." "I know." Elon set the photo down and took a deep breath. "Seeing it now, I feel the gravity of what I lost." Xavier's expression shifted. He leaned forward. "You're making up for it." Elon shook his head. "Not making up for it. Just, making it clear that I feel it. And I want to change." Xavier's eyes met his father's. "Then don't talk. Show." Elon nodded. "Then don't talk. Show." Xavier's challenge echoed in the quiet room, heavier than any boardroom negotiation. Elon placed the photo on the table and reached for one of the prototypes. "Let's fix this," he said softly. That weekend, Elon quietly cancelled a weekend in the private chalet in Aspen. Instead, he and Xavier built a small project in the garage, a solar-powered weather station, meant to teach Xavier physics but also to model presence and patience. Their conversation drifted between science and life. Elon explained algorithms articulated in simple terms, Xavier shared school projects and friend dramas. The modeless discipline of the garage, tools, wires, messy calculations, felt liberating. Opinions buzzed online, some with disdain, others with inspiration. Yet Elon focused only on the warmth in Xavier's eyes when the weather station beeped to life. They celebrated with high fives, muddy hands, and an old bottle of sparkling juice. That night they ate pizza at the kitchen table once more, like in Chapter 7, but this time there was no question, just gratitude. Elon said, "I hope this means something." Xavier smiled and said, "It already does." The moment was enough to anchor Elon's commitment. Back in his public life, Elon leaned into the backlash that cut deeper than steel criticism. He began posting unscripted moments on social media, a video clip of him teaching Xavier about solar energy, a grainy image of a machine that went wrong and them laughing together. Each post drew a storm, messages of hope, cynicism, and apology. Through it, Elon remembered Oprah's words, "Start by being present when you feel like disappearing." The boardroom at Tesla felt different now. Slides of quarterly profits glowed overhead, but Elon began meetings with a story from home, a parenting moment that reminded others why their work mattered. Some executives uncomfortable at first softened over time, others quietly walked away. But Elon felt lighter. He was aligning his public self with his private one. At SpaceX, engineers whispered that Musk's emotional evolution gave them courage. One junior engineer later told a friend, "I saw him cry. And then send me a text checking on my daughter's science fair." That small gesture made them feel seen, not just as cogs in a machine, but as people. Elon's decision to show up ripple outward, an unexpected gift to thousands of employees balancing ambition with home life. His confession became a catalyst for internal programs, parental support groups, flexible schedules, mental health initiatives. Critics said it was PR, internal surveys confirmed it was real change. Through it all, Elon and Xavier met regularly. They installed their weather station in Xavier's high school yard. They coached each other at basketball on Sunday mornings. Elon was often late, often clumsy, often forgetting dinner plans, but he came. Sometimes rushed, sometimes tired, but he came. That raw honesty became his compass. Media coverage shifted. Headlines read, Elon Musk's parenting project, real impact or hollow promise. Podcasts dissected his efforts. But the people who mattered didn't care about headlines. They cared about the results they saw at home. Xavier told a friend, "It's not perfect. But he shows up." A phrase quietly spreading among mothers and fathers like a mantra. One Sunday afternoon, Elon and Xavier attended a local youth science fair together. Elon judged the projects, Xavier introduced him to kids anxious, competitive, hopeful. As Elon snapped photos and offered praise, a hushed respect followed. Journalists were present. One interviewer approached Elon afterward. "Is this another video moment?" Elon looked at his son, watching them walk away happily. He shook his head. "It's not for the cameras anymore. It's for him." That night, Elon and Xavier stayed in, stargazing from their backyard. Elon pointed out constellations, then looked at his son. "You know, I've launched rockets to Mars. But this, tonight, is harder. Because this is a conversation, not a product." Xavier nodded. "But it feels better." "Yes." They sat in silence then. Under stars, the weight of judgment faded into something smaller, honest scrutiny replaced by honest connection. Inside, Elon felt the backlashes sting no longer. The public critique had its place, but now he had something stronger, practice over platitude, presence instead of performance. He drafted another letter that week, this time addressed simply, to Xavier, to XAEA-12, to Exa and Nevada, his children. He wrote, "I'm building a future for you, but more importantly, I want to build one with you." He dated it and placed it in a drawer alongside the first letter. Oprah, watching from afar, received updates. She noticed the change. Elon's foundation released a grant for parenting support research. He did an unscripted Q&A on Reddit titled Ask Me Anything, Parenting Edition. The sincerity felt different this time. Not reactive. Instead, proactive. Oprah felt pride. This conversation she had started was becoming more than an interview story. It was an inflection point. And yet, the public judgment remained, grudging respect, cynical skepticism, hopeful applause. But Elon had learned that presence wasn't perfection. It was imperfect effort taken again. Elon in his den late one night, reviewing blueprints and scribbles, as always. Yet among the spacecraft schematics lay another design, a family photo album, printed but touchable. He studied a page of snapshots, high fives in the garage, picnics, bedtime laughs. Under his hands, the printed words, matched the ambition to connect, in rockets and relationships. Because facing the world's judgment was only the beginning. True reckoning came in everyday moments where presence mattered more than profit, and where showing up, again and again, became the real measure of success. Elon Musk woke to the sound of early morning laughter drifting up the stairs, a sound he hadn't realized he'd missed until it returned. Downstairs, there was his partner and two youngest children, already assembled around the kitchen table, breakfast plates clinking. It was Saturday, and Elon had promised to join them, no devices, no interruptions. For once, he honored it. He descended in jeans and a hoodie, the smell of pancakes and fresh coffee greeting him like a gentle assurance. They were talking about animals, favorite species, dream pets. Nevada, the youngest, insisted a pet hamster should accompany them soon. Elon smiled and joked that the solar-powered weather station might need a pet observer. The kids laughed. Silence filled with connection. After breakfast, Elon led them outside. He'd converted the backyard into a mini, innovation lab, tables for science experiments, art supplies, and a telescope lent by his local observatory. The plan for the day, exploring curiosity together, not building a business plan. But first, they needed structure. He handed each child a fun builder's kit, a DIY microscope, a sketchpad, and an open-ended card that read, "What do you want to discover today?" Exa, the eldest, scratched her chin, then wrote, "Songwriting." Elijah chose a robot sketch. Nevada wrote, "Cloud shapes." Elon looked at each kit with quiet pride. "Okay," he said. "Let's do this together." For the next 2 hours, they rotated between stations. Exa played her song and Elon listened, really listened, leaning in, humming, asking about lyrics. He told her she had a gift and encouraged her to record it. Elijah and he built a simple robot arm out of KNEX, talking mechanics and possibilities. Elon balanced teaching with letting Elijah lead. Nevada and he lay on grass, identifying cloud shapes, her giggles contagious. When she said clouds looked like teddy bears, Elon matched the shapes with delight. It was ordinary but deeply extraordinary. Around midday, Elon called Xavier. "Hey, want to join us?" Xavier jogged over with friends, they arrived with skateboard in hand. Elon didn't hesitate, he brought them into the lab, too. The group built a small sundial from rocks and sticks, guided by Exa's song in the background. Elon watched Xavier show his friends how to align the dial, they laughed and raced shadows. Elon realized that connection wasn't just one-on-one, it was relational. Presence extended beyond his own children into moments shared among friends and family. Later, Elon took the kids to a local robotics museum, small, community-driven, cluttered with student projects and retro machines. On the car ride, the kids chatted freely. Elon listened. They told jokes, asked questions about planets, teased each other. He weighed in only when asked, and then only with encouragement. In the museum, Elon knelt beside them, eyes on their expressions when they saw a robotic arm mimic human movement. He asked questions, "What do you think this could do?" and "How would you improve it?" Not as an expert, but as a curious companion. Their excited chatter echoed in Elon's mind, connection, not correction. Observation, not optimization. He carried that lesson quietly through the rest of the afternoon. That night, after dinner, they gathered in the backyard again, this time around a bonfire. Elon brought out his acoustic guitar and played a simple melody. At first the kids hovered. Then Exa sang along. Then Xavier contributed, a verse in a gentle, hesitant tone. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Elon realized that as much as he valued precision and innovation, this moment was built on vulnerability and shared creativity. He closed his eyes, strumming a chord, and felt something settle in his chest, belonging. The night ended with stories. Elon asked each of them to name one thing that made their day amazing, and one thing they wanted to learn tomorrow. The answers were sincere, weather patterns, heartfelt songs, sunlight angles. Elon listened to their dreams, jotting ideas in a small notebook labeled Family Lab. He promised to turn those prompts into Saturdays together. Later, after the house was quiet, Elon sat alone staring at the notebook. His world-shaping ambitions had been reset, not erased, but redirected to include these moments. These micro-projects weren't distractions, they were foundations. The difference wasn't in scale. It was in presence. Over the next few weeks, Elon formalized what he'd been learning. He set aside one evening each week as family-focused night, no phones, no screens, no meetings. Simple dinner, board games, conversations. He shared the concept with his core team, offering permission for others to do the same. Some laughed, others rolled their eyes, but a few paused, considering the idea. Meanwhile, Elon continued experiments with Xavier, a coding project to control lights with voice commands, later followed by baking bread. These experiments weren't about completion, they were about engagement. Every time he stumbled, typo in code, burnt crust, he laughed, learning alongside his son. It was real. It was equal. And it felt good. Back on social media, Elon posted snapshots. They were candid, slightly messy, code stashed on whiteboard, half-eaten baguette in the kitchen, kids laughing. They weren't perfect moments, they were moments. Critics noticed, some branded it again PR. Others called it genuine parenting experiments. Parenting blogs picked it up. Elon Musk's Family Lab, What We Can Learn, read one headline. Another, When Billionaires Teach Parenting. People nodded, shared links, considered their own ethics of presence. In the midst of this, Elon sat down for a virtual session with a renowned child psychologist, Dr. Maria Reynolds. He wanted guidance, not for PR, but because he needed support. He asked openly, "How do I fix years of absence?" She answered, "You don't fix a child's heart with one act. You rebuild trust through consistency." Elon nodded, taking notes. The psychologist explained that presence is cumulative, safe spaces are built over time, and repair requires both listening and being heard. Elon shared some of his family notes, his home experiments. She offered encouragement and suggested microhabits, asking open-ended questions, using positive affirmations, and checking in daily. The session was unbroadcast, private, but it shifted him again. He introduced Daily Dad Check into his routine, a short text exchange each morning with each child asking about their day and what excited them. He didn't overthink it. He just did it. Some days it was met with enthusiasm, others silence, but it was there. Then, weeks later, Elon received a message from an employee at Tesla. She said her husband started a family lab in their home. He read Elon's posts and adapted the idea for his 3 kids. He thanked him, not for Mars, but for reminding him to show up. Elon reread that message at his desk late at night. He stared at the simple phrase, "Thank you for shifting my home." The scale of impact struck him, maybe change didn't need to be global to be meaningful. The final scene of this chapter takes place one weekday amid chaos, 10 back-to-back meetings, a conference call with investors, a SpaceX design update. Elon paused midday. He stepped outside his office, looked at his phone, and saw 3 unread texts: "Dad, can you pick me up today? Don't forget game night, love you." Instead of brushing them off, he replied deliberately, "I'll be there. Love you too." Then he returned to his meeting, but it felt different. The future was still the future, but its shape had changed. New horizons in parenting were alive and underway, not in boardrooms, but in dinner tables, garages, and quiet moments where connection finally counted. And for Elon, those horizons were thrilling, not because they led to Mars, but because they led home. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk always believed that crises were opportunities to learn and innovate. He'd engineered rockets to return from orbit, reset electric car markets, and weathered countless industry storms. But the crisis that hit on a crisp Thursday afternoon in October was different. It didn't threaten rockets or quarterly earnings. It threatened something more fragile, the trust he'd built at home. He looked down at his phone as he rushed from one meeting to another, a text from Xavier. "Coach said we need parent signatures on the consent form for the robotics competition. Is that tomorrow?" He stopped in the hallway, heart hammering. Tomorrow? He hadn't heard about the competition. He'd missed a practice once, and the hint of disappointment in Xavier's words stung deeper than any media critique. Panic surged. He scrambled through email threads. He found the registration notice buried under PR requests. The deadline had passed by hours. Moments ago he'd been talking about Mars, and now he was potentially failing to show up here, at home. In that instant, Elon felt a familiar fear, the fear of failure. Not the kind stamped in stock charts or rocket thresholds, but the type that echoes in empty bedsides and forgotten events. He paused, closed his eyes, and took a breath, one that belonged to more than him, it belonged to his child. He replied, "I'm on it." He stalled the next meeting, told his assistant to reschedule. He dashed home. On the drive he rehearsed an apology, sincere, not slick. He drafted bullet points in his head, "I'm sorry. I messed up. I love you. Let's fix this together." Simple. Honest. Human. That night, Tesla pulled him into a sudden crisis, a critical component failure in a prototype. Investors were breathing down his neck. Engineers demanded solutions. On any other day, he would have buried himself in the problem. But tonight, he had a choice. He could either step into the crisis at work, or pick up a pen and sign the robotics consent form while sitting next to Xavier practicing speech notes for the competition. He signed it. He reviewed forms for the other kids. He printed them out and handed them to Xavier before guiding him through filling his practice speech about solar energy. He tried not to flinch when the robotics failure alerts pinged on his watch. It felt like a physical reminder he was putting one world before another. Xavier looked up. "You came." Elon's throat tightened. "Always." That night, Elon slept poorly but definitively at home. In the morning, he checked Tesla's prototype from afar, then grabbed the signed forms and drove Xavier to school. They talked about the competition, about bots and speeches and excitement. That afternoon, he texted a colleague, "Saw the comps. Keep me posted, I'll call after robotics." And he did, during dinner, after bedtime stories. The next day, Elon joined Xavier at the robotics gym. He was late by 10 minutes, racing in just as practice began. Coaches paused. Xavier's face lit up. Elon slipped into a seat at the back and watched. He took a photo of the robots clacking together and posted it privately captioned, "First." Showed up. The room buzzed with motors and teenage energy. Mostly, Elon just observed. He offered encouragement, "Nice wiring, Logan. That pivot arm is solid. You're killing it, Xavier." No strategy. Just presence. And his presence changed everything. Other dads nodded in solidarity. Kids stole glances at the billionaire in the back, but the moment belonged to father and son, not to headlines. When practice ended, Elon hugged Xavier, sweaty and smiling. "That was awesome," he said. Xavier shrugged modestly. "You didn't have to come." Elon's throat tightened again. "I know. But I wanted to." That evening, after Tesla's prototype finally stabilized, Elon logged out of email and sat at his kitchen table. He pulled out the first letter dated back to Chapter 7 and then the second letter from Chapter 8. He picked up a pen and wrote a third. "Today, I chose home over headlines. It cost me time and stress, but it gave me something a rocket never could. Let's keep building this." He signed it and left it for Xavier to find. But the crisis wasn't over. News outlets captured images of Elon at the robotics thing. Some praised him, "Billionaire dad shows up for robotics." Others mocked, "Failing prototype." No, failing fatherhood. It boiled into social media again. But this time, Elon felt different. His choice was clear. He'd gambled his presence. If people wanted to critique, let them. That weekend, the competition began. Elon helped set up the arena, coached the team, listened to Xavier's pre-match speech about innovation and energy. They fixed wiring mid-match, elbow grease and laughter bridging worlds. Xavier's robot didn't win. It placed third. And he came home smiling, sweaty, proud. Elon embraced him. Third. That's progress. Xavier nodded. Perfectly imperfect. A phrase Elon later posted online, perfectly imperfect, became the weekend's humble mantra. It garnered shares, likes, and renewed conversation about parenting by presence over perfection. Inside Tesla offices, employees noticed Elon arriving late and leaving early on game night. He didn't brag. He didn't explain. He just showed. People followed, junior executives left their screens to coach youth teams. Some laughed about schedule conflicts, some sent him notes, "Thanks for allowing us to do the same." Elon didn't respond to the critics. He responded with one more letter. "To my kids, I'm still learning. I'll still miss things. But I promise you'll always come first. Not just in words, but in actions." He signed it, chose not to post it. And tucked it in his desk drawer, private, personal. That night, at bedtime, Xavier leaned in. "Dad, thank you." Elon stopped brushing his teeth. "For what?" "For coming. For trying." Elon held him. "Always." And in that moment, the crisis that had threatened everything, the failure to show up, became the foundation of something stronger. Because he'd learned that presence, not perfection, was the real test of fatherhood. And by choosing it, he'd chosen home. Elon Musk woke early, the weight of yesterday's moment still settling in his chest. The robotics competition had marked a turning point, proof that presence could pierce doubts, but today felt different. Today, a new storm gathered. The morning news showcased leaked comments from an exasperated executive at a recent Tesla planning meeting. "Elon is checking out. Prioritizing kids over deadlines, who knows what that means for Q4?" The angle was meant to sting, questioning whether Elon's newfound presence at home came at the cost of his company's momentum. He felt the pull of public opinion again, but he also felt something new: resolve. After the news update, Elon sat at the kitchen table looking across at his youngest daughter, Nevada, who was pouring juice in her cereal bowl with determination. He caught her eye and smiled. "Morning, sweetheart," he said softly. She looked up, half asleep. "Morning, Daddy." In that moment, the media chatter felt smaller, background noise to this bright, ordinary life. But the noise persisted. Emails came in, scheduled meetings nudged at him, work demands whispered from his phone. He inhaled, exhaled. Home first, he reminded himself. The day progressed in a blend of domestic routine and industrial expectation. Elon sat in a Tesla strategy session, contributing ideas to streamline manufacturing. But his focus was fractured. Images of robotics matches, family dinners, nightly check-ins crowded his mind. He caught himself scanning his phone for messages from Xavier. None, yet. That pause in inbox notification felt loaded with possibility. He returned attention to the meeting, even if his heart lingered elsewhere. Later that afternoon, Elon returned home early for family-focused night. He arrived to the familiar scent of home-cooked pasta and garlic bread. Xavier, Exa, and Nevada greeted him at the door with homemade picture cards. "We love you, thanks for showing up, best dad ever." Tears of gratitude pricked in his eyes. He kept them from spilling. Instead, he squeezed his children one by one. "You guys are my world." They gathered at the dining table. Conversation flowed freely. Exa had written a new lyric. Elijah, back from a sleepover, told a joke that had Elon in stitches. Nevada asked why Mars was red and if aliens could like peanut butter. It was near normal, and perfect. After dinner, a heavy tension returned. Elon looked at them, his mind humming with public doubts. He cleared his throat. "Kids, I want to tell you something." He paused, gathering strength. "Some people at work think I shouldn't be here tonight, that I should be in a boardroom, worrying about profit. They say," he paused, weighing the words, "that I might be neglecting responsibilities." The kids listened, wide-eyed. He swallowed. But I disagree. Because being responsible for you, that matters most. And I want you to know that I'm doing this, not on a whim, but because it's what real love looks like. It's work too. And hard work. The kids exhaled, relief and pride washing their expressions. They didn't offer slogans or hashtags. They just gave him the quietest, warmest hug, proof that presence was real. Then came the challenge. Aside from the family warmth, Elon's companies faced a crisis. A critical supply chain disruption, legal recertification delays, and a defiant investor calling for his schedule. Reports speculated on whether he'd have to choose between family or the board. Elon knew what people expected, yet, he braced for the pressure. That night, after stories and stargazing, he found himself unable to sleep. The silent lull of midnight only amplified his fears. Could he truly balance it all? Could he ensure both family integrity and industrial progress? He sat in his den with 2 letters, the one written weeks ago, and another blank. A plan began to form. The next morning, Elon called a live-streamed company-wide meeting with a message titled, Presence versus Performance. As puzzled employees tuned in, he began with transparency. I'm here late for a reason, my kids are worth it. But so is everyone here, working hard to build the future. I don't expect perfection from myself or from any of us. But I do believe that we can be both innovators and humans who show up. The camera showed his tired face, earnest eyes. The internet buzzed. Some rolled their eyes. But many nodded. A tweet came from a Tesla engineer, CEO whose constant message, work hard, live real. That day, a ripple started, a reminder that leadership doesn't only live in paying dividends, it lives in modeling presence. Despite the board prickling, the day's emails included a new message, a technologist from the lab thanking Elon for opening up about struggle, a single mom employee who said it inspired her to ask for more flexibility. A small victory, but meaningful. That weekend, Elon built yet another project with Xavier, a backyard solar oven. The experiment sputtered at first, then worked. Cookies warmed in the solar heat. The kids cheered. Neighbors popped by curious. Elon didn't hide their cookout. He invited others, Xavier's friends, local families. Soon, the backyard innovation site became a weekend hub of laughter, curiosity, sticky fingers, solar-smelling cookies. Elon looked around, heart full. Work and home didn't have to compete, they could feed each other. Midnight came, and Elon wrote again. His letter this time was different. To my kids, and to myself, I don't have all the answers. I won't always get it right. But I'm working for you and with you. This is not a retreat. This is real life. I hope you always know that. Love, Dad. He signed it and left it on the kitchen table for them to find. He realized that in this struggle he was not alone. He had them, and they had him. At work, the board's questions remained. Elon didn't dodge them. He offered this message, the numbers are strong. The work is advancing. The future is secure. Because I'm whole, not fractured. And that makes me stronger. Some smiled. Some scowled. But they listened. The emotional whirlwind settled into a rhythm of imperfection and intent. Elon understood that the crossroads wasn't about sacrificing rockets or relationships, it was about weaving them together. He stood in front of a star-charted skylight that night, tears cleaning his chest, memories of presence mingling with future visions. The chapter closes with Elon tucking the letters into a scrapbook beside family photos, one more page added, titled Moments of Despair and Hope. He touched it gently. Presence had not only saved him, it had changed him forever. The world would not always understand, but at that table, under that roof, he had found balance. Elon Musk woke to the clatter of early morning construction outside his window, but today's noise felt different. Less like disruption, more like life unfolding. He sat up and noticed a folded note on his nightstand in his daughter's handwriting, "Morning Star Baker. There are heart-shaped cookies waiting in the kitchen." A smile lifted his chest. The simple gesture, a child's expression of love, felt like a sunrise, more powerful than any rocket launch. Downstairs, the aroma of sugar and cocoa led him to a sticky countertop where Exa and Nevada had decorated cookies. Powdered sugar dusted the air. The girls greeted him with flowery hugs. Elon handed Exa a warm cookie. She bit into it and said, "Dad, it's perfect." His throat tightened. Because of the cookies, or because I'm here? Exa thought for a moment. Both. The sincerity gleamed brighter than sunlight. He helped wash dishes, learning again the rhythm of home chores, the small efficiencies of shared labor. In the background, Nevada hummed a tune, discordant but joyous. Elon recognized it, the melody his youngest had composed the day before, and paused. "That sounds new," he said. Nevada nodded. She taught him a few notes. Elon matched her pitch. They mused about turning it into a song. He promised he'd try once the rocket prototype was stable. She beamed. This wasn't a staged experiment, it was inches of steady reconnection. Elon could feel the slow burn of belonging in these moments, more potent than bored approval. That afternoon, Elon invited Grimes and the children for a low-key backyard picnic, sandwiches, lemonade, a kite. He reached out because he knew repairing parental bonds went beyond one relationship, it extended across fractured paths. Grimes arrived with a cooler and hesitant optimism. Elon greeted her with respect, ignoring speculation's weight, but meeting her gaze sincerely. She appreciated the nuance in his gesture, no cameras, no statements, just openness. They rebuilt a normal rapport, the kind built on co-parenting children they both loved. As they sat under the shade tree, children raced, laughter sparkling. Elon and Grimes talked quietly about shared concerns, children's education, emotional balance, college readiness. They listened without defending. The conversation drifted, gentle. Elon said, "I'm learning how to listen more than lead." Grimes nodded. "I notice." No applause punctuated the moment, just quiet understanding. Later, Elon and Grimes walked together, leaving the kids in sunlight. Elon looked at her and said, "I'm sorry, about the things I missed." Grimes looked toward the children. "What matters is what happens next." Elon felt relief wash through him. They didn't erase the past, but they honored it, and committed to better. That mattered. In the evenings of that week, Elon continued rituals, bedtime stories, homework help, meditative walks under the moon. At bedtime, Exa asked for a story about astronomy. He told one, a fictional bedtime tale of a small girl pilot traveling through Saturn's rings with her robot companion, reminding her that her dreams could reach the stars and come home again. She whispered, "That could be me." Elon's heart soared. He found himself navigating homes and heartbeats with new care. Gone were the autopilot instincts to manage rockets, replaced by curiosity for children's inner worlds. He learned their fears, of failure, of making friends, and offered gentle words. He discovered their joys, painting, soccer, piano, and offered encouragement. In doing so, he found a different kind of purpose, nurturing potential not only in rockets, but in relationships. Through this week, Elon introduced another ritual, the Sunday Story Share. Each person, child or parent, told one thing they learned that week. Not on screens but in voices. Elon shared that he'd realized love doesn't come in packages, it comes in presence. Exa spoke about songwriting, Xavier about problem solving, Nevada about cloud watching, Grimes about creative patience. These were moments of rediscovery, not just for children, but for Elon himself. He kept up with the world too, Tesla meetings, SpaceX deadlines, but he honored his family's rhythms. He often slipped in quietly at 7 p.m., clutching a guitar, a book of poems, or fresh lemonade. He stood in hallways for moments, listening in on laughter, brushing shoulders with a hug. One afternoon, Elon invited Dr. Maria Reynolds from Chapter 10 for a casual chat over tea in his backyard. She sat with him and Grimes while the kids played nearby. He said, "I want to understand how to sustain this. Not just while it's easy, but when rockets demand my life again." Dr. Reynolds nodded. Sustainability in family is like fuel. You refuel constantly, not just at launch. She described boundaries, communication frameworks, checking in not with performance metrics but emotional check-ins. Elon listened attentively, processed every word, and asked for simple ways to continue after prototypes called him back. Dr. Reynolds suggested setting an evening anchor, a moment every night to hold space and debrief. Elon agreed. He planned to test it immediately. That evening, at 8:30, Elon sat down with each child, one at a time, for a quiet chat, no science talk, no media. Just presence. Exa, leaning against him, whispered about an upcoming math test. Nevada volunteered her song. Xavier brought a story about being bullied today. Elon listened. Encouraged. Held. This wasn't agenda-driven, it was heart-driven. Through the week, Elon noticed subtle shifts at home, less silence, more openness. Kids sparked conversation unprompted. He picked up their journal pages from school without asking. The cards and pictures on the fridge expanded, handmade reminders of affection. He catalogued them visually and emotionally in his mind. On Saturday, Elon did something he hadn't done in years, a family game night. Consoles and mobiles packed away. Board games on the floor. Laughter surged as rules were reinterpreted. Elon lost dozens of games, Scrabble, Monopoly, trivia. He took playful losses, cheered wins, learned witty lessons. The kids felt safe. They cheered him on. Gratitude overflowed. That night he posted a simple message to internal teams at Tesla and SpaceX: "This week I lost all my board games, but I gained a family." Reminder to show up, not just deliver. It wasn't a press release, it was a note of authenticity. Some replied with emojis. Some mentioned their own family game nights. It became a quiet movement. By the end of the month, Elon's world felt fuller, not busier. He still launched rockets, oversaw car lines, negotiated with investors. But the heartbeat of his life had expanded to include joy, vulnerability, recovery. He had re-entered the world not alone, but with love in every orbit. Elon Musk woke before dawn, the sky an ink canvas stretching above his home, quiet except for the gentle hum of distant streetlights. He slipped outside to the backyard, coffee in hand, where the air still smelled of last night's campfire and lingering laughter. A glance at the family lab structure revealed remnants of Saturday's project. Blankets, scrap wood, half-finished cloud chart, and a bicycle wheel repurposed into a wind vane. He smiled at the organized immensity of disorder, the evidence of creativity, curiosity, and connection thriving in imperfection. That warmth became a fuel on which he would carry himself through the day. Inside, his children stirred. Exa and Xavier had begun the habit of leaving small notes on the fridge, tiny doodles, reminders of shared jokes, lipstick marks on paper hearts. Elon lingered before them, tracing each drawing with a soft fingertip. In the kitchen, he found Nevada asleep at the table, head resting on her arms beside her discarded watercolor set. And next to her lay an envelope addressed to "Dad, coolest gadget guy." He carefully peeled it open. Inside was a token, a tiny plastic gear taped to a hand-drawn card reading, "For your next project." Elon held the card close, his chest tightening. That day, Elon's calendar included a full roster. Board meetings, investor calls, SpaceX test updates. But he had adjusted one key entry, a midday break labeled "Lunch with Kids and Surprise." His assistant shook her head when he announced it. "Are you sure?" But he didn't hesitate. He was certain. At noon, Elon met Exa and Xavier at a small cafe near their school. They'd invited two of their friends. It was unplanned, but a new norm emerging, family blending into community, not hidden from it. The group gathered at a long table. Elon asked simple questions, about classes, weekend plans, favorite lunch. But he also watched the dynamics. When Xavier cracked a joke and the table erupted in laughter, Elon smiled the biggest smile he'd had all month. Exa pointed to a gear necklace she was making. Elon examined it. She said, "It reminds me of yesterday's cloud diagram." He asked how she chose the colors. She explained her choice, pastel to reflect dreams. Elon nodded. They spoke of small things. But in the accumulation of these small things rose a deeper bond. Later that afternoon, Elon led the group to their garage lab. He'd prepared a family challenge to build the fastest model car powered by sunlight. The kids scrambled, sketching, slicing cardboard, attaching gears, designing solar cells. Elon moved between them, sometimes advising, mostly watching, occasionally bending down to ask, "What's your goal?" or "Want me to hold this?" No grand speeches. No corporate analogy. Just mentorship in humility. As the model cars zipped along a drawn track, cheered by kids and parents alike, Elon realized something profound: connection isn't an event, it's a practice. A daily choice to enter the messy work of relationships with humility and curiosity. Over dinner that night, they shared the day's accomplishments, and also frustrations. The cars weren't perfect. Some parts broke. But they took care of each other, shrugged off mistakes, moved on. Elon looked at them circling the kitchen island and thought, this is how trust grows. Through messy trial and shared solutions. As they cleared the table, Exa asked if they could choose the next family experiment. Elon smiled. "It's your turn." She lit up. It wasn't about control, it was about empowerment. Elon realized that one of the great lessons his children were teaching him: presence is also permission. Later that evening, Elon checked in with his remote teams, a late-night call to confirm a prototype milestone. But when tension rose on the call, he paused. He thought of the kids' project. He said, gently, "Let's pause. I need a moment." His team looked surprised, they waited. Elon returned a few minutes later. "Thank you for waiting. Sometimes you need a moment to reset. Let's keep going." That wordless model of emotional regulation rippled through the team. It was another moment of leadership, explicit yet quiet, authoritative yet human. At bedtime, Elon sat beside Xavier, reading a chapter from a science fiction novel they were enjoying together. He let Xavier guide the questions about character motives, the chemistry of planets, the possibilities of AI. Elon didn't check him. He listened. And he probed, "What would you do?" Showing trust in his child's intellect and soul. As Xavier drifted off, Elon kissed his forehead. Xavier whispered, "Thanks for today." Elon whispered back, "Thank you for letting me." After the house shut down, Elon took the plastic gear from the cafe and held it in his palm. He thought of the board meetings, the rockets, the cars, all timeline-driven. Then he thought of tiny voices, trust forged in sunlit afternoons, messy models birthed in a messy garage. And he understood, influence is not power managed, influence is love multiplied through connection. He journaled in his leather-bound pad, "A deeper bond begins in the small moments. Presence isn't flashy, but it's felt." He dated the entry and tucked the pad next to the letters in his desk drawer. That night, Elon replayed the day, not to relive perfection, but to absorb its meaning. He understood that authority would hold varied expressions, sometimes in boardrooms, sometimes in bedtime. That evening taught him that love and ambition need not compete, they simply need to coexist and live in perfect harmony. Elon stands in the garage with the gear, watching the kids' model cars resting on the track under the faint glow of overhead bulbs. It isn't about speed or design, it's about the hum of real life in the room. And that hum, he realized, is everything. Elon woke to the buzz of his phone, the screen lighting up with a message from Nevada. "Dad, can you come to school today? We have a surprise." The simplicity of the note stirred something unfamiliar, a quiet anticipation, not related to rockets or business. He glanced at the calendar and realized his usual morning meetings could be rescheduled. Within the hour, he was in the car, driving through the familiar streets toward the elementary school where Nevada was in 3rd grade. The sun cast golden hues over the town, and for once, Elon felt a sense of normalcy he hadn't experienced in years. Upon arrival, Nevada greeted him with a shy smile and took his hand, leading him inside the bustling school hallway filled with colorful drawings and the excited chatter of children. They arrived at the auditorium, where parents and kids gathered for the annual talent show. Nevada tugged at Elon's sleeve, whispering, "You're my special guest." As the performances began, Elon's mind drifted from spreadsheets and rocket designs to the sheer innocence and courage of these young performers. When Nevada's turn came, she stepped onto the stage with surprising confidence and began playing a song she had composed herself on the piano. The melody was imperfect but heartfelt, each note carrying a story of joy, fear, and hope. Elon watched, mesmerized, as his daughter poured herself into the music. The applause at the end was thunderous, and Nevada's smile lit up the room. Backstage, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "I want you to hear more." Over the following days, Elon found himself visiting the school more frequently, not for business, but for music rehearsals and art shows. He began to understand the power of creativity as a language of the soul, something even the most advanced algorithms could not replicate. One afternoon, Nevada invited him to join her music class, where children experimented with sounds and rhythms. Elon sat quietly, observing how the kids collaborated, negotiated, and expressed themselves without judgment or haste. The experience humbled him. He realized that leadership wasn't only about commanding teams or innovating technology but about nurturing environments where others could thrive authentically. That evening, he called Grimes and shared his reflections. She listened, her voice soft, "You're learning the language of patience and presence." Elon nodded, feeling the truth in her words. The next week, inspired by Nevada's creativity, Elon organized a surprise music day at home, inviting local musicians and friends. The house buzzed with instruments, laughter, and impromptu jams. The children flourished in this new energy, and Elon discovered joy in stepping back, allowing others to lead. Yet, the unexpected lesson was that sometimes, surrendering control did not mean weakness but strength, a new form of mastery. By the end of the chapter, Elon sat alone under the stars, strumming a borrowed guitar, feeling the unspoken connection between innovation and art, ambition and vulnerability. The journey of parenting, he now understood, was less about solving problems and more about embracing the unknown with open arms. Elon Musk stood by the window of his home office, gazing out over the sprawling city skyline glittering under the evening sky. The glowing lights reminded him of the stars he so often chased with his rockets, yet tonight, his mind was grounded, tangled in the shadows of his own making. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind of rediscovery and connection with his children, but beneath the surface, old tensions and doubts whispered in the silence. Parenting, he was learning, was not a straight path, it was a landscape littered with peaks of joy and valleys of uncertainty. Earlier that day, a difficult conversation with Exa had unsettled him. She was growing into a fiercely independent young woman, and her questions about the future sometimes cut sharper than any technical critique. "Dad," she had said, "why do you always push us to be perfect? Like everything's a project or a mission. Sometimes I just want to be me, without expectations." Her words echoed in his mind now, heavier than any launch countdown. Elon had responded awkwardly, attempting to explain that high standards came from love, but he feared it sounded more like pressure. That evening, the house felt quieter, the absence of light-hearted laughter a stark reminder that rebuilding trust was an ongoing process. He thought back to the early days with his own parents, to the complex relationship that shaped his drive and insecurities. The relentless pursuit of success was both a gift and a curse handed down through generations. Now, standing at this crossroads, Elon realized he had to choose what legacy to leave, not just in rockets and electric cars, but in the hearts of his children. How to balance ambition with empathy. Strength with softness. The answers were not found in data sheets or algorithms, but in moments of vulnerability. Later that night, Elon found himself in the family room, where Xavier was quietly sketching in his notebook. Sitting beside him, Elon asked about the drawing, a futuristic cityscape lit by green energy. Xavier's eyes brightened as he explained each detail, his enthusiasm infectious. Elon listened deeply, remembering how creativity could be a bridge to understanding. He shared a story from his own youth, about a time when he felt lost and found solace in imagining new worlds. Xavier nodded, sensing his father's openness, and for the first time, Elon felt a genuine connection without pretense. The next morning, Elon scheduled a family meeting, a new ritual he hoped would create space for honesty and support. Around the kitchen table, they shared their feelings, fears, and hopes. Exa voiced her desire for freedom, Nevada talked about her dreams of music, Xavier admitted his struggles with schoolwork. Elon listened without interruption, offering empathy instead of solutions. In that circle, walls began to crumble, replaced by fragile but growing trust. Amid these personal revelations, the external world pressed on with relentless demands. Elon's companies faced critical deadlines and competitive pressures. Balancing the two worlds tested his resilience. Yet, each evening when he returned home, he reminded himself of the fragile lights waiting for him there. One night, after a grueling day, Elon found Grimes in the garden, tending to their plants. She looked up and smiled, sensing his weariness. "Remember," she said softly, "light and shadow are part of the same picture. You can't have one without the other." Her words stayed with him. In the following days, Elon experimented with new ways to support his children, letting go of control, encouraging their choices, and accepting imperfection. He practiced patience when Exa missed deadlines, and celebrated Nevada's small victories in music. With Xavier, he adopted a coaching mindset, asking questions rather than giving answers. Slowly, he saw changes, not immediate transformations, but subtle shifts in atmosphere and trust. One afternoon, as Elon and Exa walked through a local park, she surprised him by asking about his own fears. The question caught him off guard. He shared honestly about his doubts of being a good father, the fear of failing those he loved most. Exa listened thoughtfully and then hugged him. The chapter closes with Elon standing outside late at night, watching a rocket launch on a screen. As the fiery trail pierced the darkness, he whispered to himself, "We all carry shadows, but it's the light we choose to chase that defines us." He turned back inside to his family, the imperfect, beautiful light of their lives glowing steady and strong. Elon Musk had always been a man who thrived on breaking barriers, whether in technology, space travel, or renewable energy. But this time, the challenge was more personal and complex, breaking through the invisible walls that separated him from his children's emotional worlds. For years, he had viewed parenting through the lens of logic and innovation, a problem to be solved with schedules, goals, and data. But as the weeks passed, it became clear that connection demanded a different kind of courage, a willingness to be vulnerable, to listen without judgment, and to walk alongside rather than lead from ahead. It began one chilly Saturday morning when Elon found Nevada sitting alone in the family room, her sketchpad open but untouched. The usual sparkle in her eyes was replaced by quiet frustration. Instead of offering a quick fix, Elon simply sat beside her and asked, "Want to tell me what's on your mind?" Nevada hesitated, then spoke about feeling overshadowed by the big projects and the constant pressure to perform. She confessed how sometimes she felt invisible in a house that seemed to run on deadlines and achievements. Her words struck Elon deeply, forcing him to confront his blind spots. Determined to change, Elon started small, by carving out time for just the two of them, free from phones or distractions. They went to the local botanical garden, where Nevada found joy in naming flowers and drawing their petals. Elon listened, learning not just about plants but about the importance of presence. He realized that true attention is the greatest gift he could offer, more valuable than any material reward or grand gesture. Meanwhile, with Xavier and Exa, Elon faced different challenges. Xavier was struggling in school, feeling pressure to meet expectations but lacking confidence. Exa was wrestling with identity and the desire to carve out her own path apart from her father's towering legacy. Conversations with them were often punctuated by awkward silences or misunderstandings. Elon found himself rereading books on emotional intelligence and parenting, searching for tools to build bridges rather than walls. One evening, Elon invited Exa to join him in the garage to work on a new prototype, a compact solar charger. As they tinkered, she opened up about her fears of disappointing him and the world. Elon shared his own fears, not of failure, but of not being present enough. The vulnerability deepened their bond and opened the door to honest dialogue. They laughed, argued, and dreamed together, blurring the line between father and friend. Simultaneously, Elon started weekly, family dinners, where no technology was allowed and everyone shared highs and lows of the week. These dinners became a sacred space of openness. Sometimes the conversations were tough, but Elon welcomed the discomfort, understanding it as part of growth. Over time, the kids began initiating these dinners themselves, signaling a shift from obligation to desire. At work, Elon found that these lessons carried over. Leading a diverse team through complex projects demanded empathy as much as intellect. He realized that emotional agility was a critical skill in both family and business. The same patience he cultivated at home helped him navigate tense negotiations and inspire his teams. One memorable afternoon, Elon surprised his children with tickets to a space museum. Walking among models of rockets and satellites, they marveled at human ingenuity. Elon spoke not as a CEO, but as a storyteller sharing the wonder of exploration. The kids asked questions, debated ideas, and imagined futures. The day was a reminder that inspiration comes alive in shared experiences. Yet, not every moment was smooth. Elon faced moments of doubt and frustration, especially when old habits resurfaced. There were nights when he slipped back into control mode, pushing too hard or expecting too much. But with each misstep, he learned to apologize and try again. His children responded with grace, recognizing his efforts and growth. By the end of the chapter, Elon reflected on how breaking barriers, between technology and emotion, authority and vulnerability, ambition and love, was the greatest journey of all. He understood that the walls that once seemed immovable could be dismantled brick by brick through patience, empathy, and relentless hope. The chapter closes with Elon standing in the quiet garage, surrounded by tools and half-built projects, feeling the hum of possibility. Not just in machines or missions, but in the fragile, beautiful work of human connection. He smiled, knowing that breaking barriers wasn't a one-time achievement, it was a lifelong commitment. Elon Musk sat quietly in the living room, the glow of the fireplace casting dancing shadows on the walls. The house was calm, but inside him, a storm had been building for weeks. This was the moment he'd been dreading and anticipating all at once, the turning point in his journey as a father, a man, and a leader. It was the moment when all the lessons, failures, hopes, and fears collided, forcing him to confront the deepest truths about himself and his relationship with his children. It began with a phone call from Xavier's school counselor, a voice gentle but urgent on the other end. Xavier had been struggling more than Elon realized, his grades slipping, his mood darker, his once bright enthusiasm clouded by anxiety and self-doubt. The counselor recommended a meeting, one Elon accepted without hesitation, knowing this was no longer something he could delegate or ignore. That afternoon, Elon sat in a modest office filled with colorful posters and soft light, listening as the counselor painted a picture of a boy overwhelmed by expectations, feeling lost in the shadow of a father who seemed always just out of reach. As Elon absorbed the words, a familiar tightness gripped his chest, the guilt of absence, the sting of miscommunication. He remembered times when he had been physically present but emotionally distant, caught in the whirlwind of work and ambition. He realized that despite his efforts, his children sometimes felt unseen or unheard. The counselor's final advice lingered in his mind: sometimes, the best way to help is simply to be there, not as a problem solver, but as a steady presence. That evening, Elon gathered his family around the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken tension. He began by acknowledging his mistakes, admitting that he had often prioritized work over their needs. His voice was steady but vulnerable, breaking through the usual walls of pride and control. Exa, Nevada, and Xavier listened quietly, their expressions softening. Elon invited them to share their feelings openly, promising to listen without judgment or interruption. What followed was a conversation raw with honesty and emotion. Xavier spoke of feeling lost, of wanting his father's approval but fearing disappointment. Exa shared her desire for independence and understanding. Nevada expressed the hope that family moments could be less about schedules and more about connection. Elon absorbed each word like a man unlearning a lifetime of habits, realizing that leadership at home required humility and patience beyond what he'd ever known. In the days that followed, Elon took deliberate steps to embody the changes he'd promised. He slowed down, creating pockets of uninterrupted time with each child. He attended Xavier's school events, cheering loudly and authentically. He supported Exa's creative projects, not as a critic but as a collaborator. He nurtured Nevada's musical talents, encouraging her to express herself freely. Each act was a brick laid in rebuilding trust and intimacy. Simultaneously, Elon confronted his own inner battles: the fear of failure, the pressure to be perfect, the vulnerability of admitting shortcomings. He sought counsel from mentors and therapists, understanding that growth required more than willpower, it required openness to change. Through these efforts, he found a new kind of strength, not in control, but in connection. At work, Elon's renewed emotional awareness transformed his leadership style. He fostered a culture of empathy and transparency, encouraging his teams to embrace failure as a stepping stone rather than a setback. His personal journey became a beacon, inspiring those around him to prioritize balance and authenticity. One night, as the family sat together watching a meteor shower, Elon felt a profound sense of peace. The sky above was a tapestry of light and darkness, reminding him that life's beauty lay in its contrasts. He reached out, taking each child's hand in turn, silently promising to walk with them through whatever came next. The chapter closes with Elon journaling late into the night, the words flowing with a new clarity: the turning point is not an end, but a beginning, a chance to rewrite the story with love, courage, and grace. He looked up at the stars, knowing that like the rockets he launched, his greatest journey was still unfolding. Elon Musk found himself standing at the threshold of his past and future, feeling the weight of both as he prepared to rebuild the bridges that years of distance and misunderstanding had frayed. The previous turning point had ignited a spark, but now came the painstaking work of restoration, a labor of love that required patience, humility, and persistence. His family, once fragmented by the relentless pursuit of success, was now ready to begin healing, but the path was anything but smooth. In the days following his heartfelt conversation with his children, Elon made a conscious effort to show up in ways that mattered. Mornings once dominated by back-to-back meetings were now punctuated by breakfast conversations with Nevada, where she would excitedly share her latest piano piece or a drawing she was proud of. Elon listened with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed not just curiosity but care. These small moments, once overlooked, became lifelines, knitting their relationship closer. Xavier, too, responded to this new attentiveness. Elon began attending his soccer games, cheering loudly from the sidelines, feeling the thrill of shared excitement and simple joys. He noticed how Xavier's eyes sparkled when his father was present, not as a distant figure consumed by work, but as a fellow fan, teammate, and supporter. At home, Elon helped Xavier with his homework, not by giving answers but by guiding him to find solutions, fostering confidence and independence. Exa's relationship with Elon also began to soften. She appreciated his efforts to respect her space while remaining available for honest conversations. One evening, they cooked dinner together, experimenting with new recipes and laughing over mishaps. During this time, Exa confided her dreams of pursuing art and music, ambitions that once seemed far from Elon's tech-centric world. Instead of discouraging her, Elon encouraged exploration, promising to support her passions even if they diverged from his own expectations. Despite these positive changes, rebuilding was not without setbacks. Old habits and frustrations surfaced, causing tension. Elon occasionally slipped into impatience, especially when work pressures mounted. His children, too, tested boundaries, navigating their own growth and emotions. But the difference now was the presence of open communication. When conflicts arose, they addressed them honestly, with Elon taking responsibility for his mistakes and inviting dialogue rather than defensiveness. To further nurture their connection, Elon introduced a weekly family project night, an opportunity for everyone to collaborate on creative or practical tasks. Some weeks they built model rockets, others, they painted murals or planted a vegetable garden. These projects became fertile ground for laughter, teamwork, and discovery. More importantly, they fostered a sense of shared purpose beyond individual achievements. Elon also sought to involve his children in his world, inviting them to visit his companies and meet his teams. He encouraged them to ask questions, learn about innovation, and witness the passion that fueled his work. But he was careful to frame these visits not as expectations but as invitations, allowing the children to engage on their own terms. Through these experiences, they began to see their father not just as an iconic entrepreneur but as a person driven by curiosity and resilience. One pivotal afternoon, Elon took Nevada to a music workshop where she could explore different instruments and styles. Watching her lose herself in the melodies, Elon felt a profound respect for her artistic spirit. He realized that parenting was less about molding children into a predetermined shape and more about nurturing the unique light within each of them. Amid this progress, Elon continued to wrestle with his own internal landscape. He maintained therapy sessions and mindfulness practices, recognizing that his growth was essential to sustaining the family's healing. These moments of introspection deepened his empathy and patience, equipping him to better support his children's journeys. At the same time, Elon worked to rebuild his relationship with Grimes, acknowledging that their co-parenting partnership was foundational to the family's stability. They engaged in honest conversations about boundaries, roles, and shared values, striving to present a united front despite their differences. Their evolving dynamic was a testament to the power of communication and compromise. The chapter culminates in a family trip to a quiet lakeside cabin, a break from the relentless pace of city life. Surrounded by nature's tranquility, the family spent days hiking, storytelling by the fire, and simply being present with one another. In these moments, Elon saw the fruits of their efforts, a family not perfect but resilient, bonded by love and a commitment to grow together. As they watched the sun set over the water, Elon reflected on the journey from isolation to intimacy. The bridges rebuilt were stronger because they were forged in vulnerability and authenticity. He understood that parenting, like innovation, was an ongoing process of trial, error, and breakthrough. Elon writing in his journal, "Rebuilding is hard. It requires courage to face what we've broken and hope to create something new. But with love as our foundation, no bridge is too far." He looked around at his sleeping family, feeling a quiet gratitude and a steady resolve for the chapters yet unwritten. Elon Musk had always lived much of his life in the public eye, with every achievement, tweet, and personal move scrutinized by millions around the world. Yet, nothing tested his resilience like balancing fatherhood with public expectations. The spotlight, once a source of pride and power, now cast long shadows over his family's private moments. As the media caught wind of his evolving relationship with his children, Elon found himself navigating a delicate dance between transparency and protection. It started with an interview where Elon spoke candidly about his parenting challenges and growth. His openness surprised many, breaking the usual narrative of the untouchable tech titan. Headlines ranged from praise for his vulnerability to skepticism about the authenticity of his transformation. Social media exploded with debate, some applauding the change, others questioning if fame could ever allow genuine connection. Elon knew that this public scrutiny added pressure, but he also saw an opportunity to show that even those perceived as superhuman grappled with the same struggles. Within the family, the impact of public attention was palpable. His children, especially Exa and Xavier, felt the weight of external eyes, sometimes withdrawing or reacting defensively. Elon made it clear that their privacy was paramount, drawing firm boundaries with reporters and social media. He taught them to focus on their own truths rather than the noise, a lesson both challenging and empowering. Amid this chaos, Elon remained steadfast in his commitment to his children. He created media-free zones at home, sacred spaces where cameras and phones were banned, allowing authentic connection to flourish away from the glare. These moments became a sanctuary, where laughter, frustration, and love could be expressed without filters. One pivotal incident tested Elon's resolve. A tabloid published a misleading story about his parenting style, painting him as detached and harsh. The article sparked backlash, reigniting old criticisms. Instead of retreating, Elon chose transparency. He addressed the misinformation openly, sharing his family's journey in his own words. The response was mixed, but many appreciated his honesty. More importantly, Elon's children saw their father standing up not just for himself but for their family's dignity. To counterbalance the spotlight's pressure, Elon introduced a family tradition, weekly, unplugged nights, where they disconnected from digital devices and reconnected with each other. Activities ranged from storytelling and board games to stargazing and cooking together. These nights became a cornerstone of their healing, reinforcing bonds beyond public perception. At work, Elon's new emotional awareness influenced how he handled media and public relations. He encouraged his teams to communicate authentically, embracing both successes and failures. This shift fostered a culture of trust and resilience, mirroring the transformation at home. Throughout this chapter, Elon reflected on the paradox of fame, how it could isolate yet also inspire, distort yet illuminate. He recognized that living openly required courage and boundaries, a delicate balance he was learning to master. The chapter closes with Elon standing on the balcony of his home, gazing at the city lights beneath a starry sky. He thought about the journey ahead, knowing that the public eye would always be watching, but now, he felt stronger, grounded in love, truth, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Elon Musk stood quietly in the softly lit room, the hum of the city fading into the background as he reflected on the journey that had brought him here, the twists, the struggles, the breakthroughs. Years ago, he had defined success by rockets launched, cars sold, and technological revolutions sparked. But now, standing amid the laughter and warmth of his children gathered around him, he understood that love, complex, challenging, imperfect, was the true legacy he wanted to leave behind. The story of his life was no longer just about innovation or fame, it was about connection, growth, and sacrifice. This final chapter of his personal journey began not with grand gestures, but with the simple daily choices, showing up for school recitals, listening deeply when someone needed to talk, forgiving mistakes, his own and others. Elon had learned that love was less about perfection and more about presence, resilience, and grace. It was the willingness to keep trying, even when the path was uncertain. The children, once distant and guarded, had blossomed in this environment of openness. Nevada's music filled the house with vibrant energy, a reminder that beauty could emerge from patience and encouragement. Xavier, more confident and curious, pursued his passions with newfound vigor, no longer weighed down by the shadows of expectation. Exa embraced her individuality boldly, supported by a father who celebrated her uniqueness instead of molding her to a predefined mold. Together, they had faced storms of doubt, disappointment, and misunderstanding, but each challenge had woven their lives tighter together. Elon's relationship with Grimes had also evolved, marked now by respect and cooperation, an acknowledgement that parenting was a shared journey, regardless of the twists their paths had taken. Elon often thought about the lessons his own parents had taught him, both the blessings and the wounds, and how he wanted to rewrite history for his own family. He recognized that love was sometimes a difficult teacher, requiring humility and sacrifice. It demanded putting others before self, but also nurturing oneself to be fully present. One evening, as the family gathered around a roaring fire, Elon shared a story from his childhood, one he had never told before. It was a tale of vulnerability and courage, of a boy learning to accept imperfection and embrace hope. His children listened intently, their eyes wide with empathy and understanding. The moment bridged past and present, showing how stories shape identity and healing. Elon's reflections deepened as he thought about the broader meaning of legacy. While his technological achievements would undoubtedly change the world, the love he cultivated at home was the foundation upon which all else rested. It was a beacon for his children and a quiet revolution in its own right. He also pondered the role of sacrifice in love. Success often demanded long hours and tough decisions, yet he had come to see that true sacrifice was not the absence of ambition, but the conscious choice to prioritize relationships alongside dreams. It was about being there for the little moments as much as the big ones. Throughout this chapter, Elon's voice carried a blend of humility, hope, and wisdom. He acknowledged the imperfect nature of life, but affirmed that love, patient, persistent, and forgiving, could heal wounds and build futures. He urged readers to embrace their own journeys with courage, recognizing that the heart's work was as vital as any scientific breakthrough. Elon looking toward the horizon, the rising sun painting the sky in hues of gold and rose. He smiled, knowing that his story was still unfolding, but confident that love's true legacy would endure beyond all else. Life, he wrote in his journal, is a series of moments, each an opportunity to choose love, to grow, to connect. That is the greatest invention of all. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?